I am Zachary, 27 years old, and 10 years ago my life ended without me actually dying. Before I tell you about the moment I watched my own parents beg for forgiveness on my doorstep, I need to know something. Go to the comments right now and tell me where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels, because for a decade, I wasn't allowed to have a story at all. To understand why I didn't answer the door when they came crying, you have to understand the night they threw me out. I was 17. It was a Saturday. In the Miller household, Saturdays were a religion. My parents, Robert and Linda, were obsessed with image. We weren't just a family. We were a performance art piece for the neighborhood. Dad was the provider, the stoic pillar of the community who loved to talk about his salary and his investments. Mom was the glue, the perfect hostess who could bake a pie and gossip about the neighbors in the same breath. Then there was Jake, my older brother, who was essentially a carbon copy of my father but without the spine. And finally there was Anne, and was my adopted sister. My parents brought her home when she was 8 because the perfect family portrait needed a daughter to be complete. She was 16 that night. For years, I was the one who helped her with her math homework. I was the one who scared off the bullies when they made fun of her for being adopted. I was the good one. I was the safe one, or so I thought. That night was supposed to be a celebration of my parents' anniversary. The house was packed. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, the local pastor. Everyone who mattered in our small, suffocating town was there. The air smelled of expensive roast beef and my mother's overpowering perfume. I was in the kitchen, refilling the ice bucket, feeling good. I had decent grades, a girlfriend named Emma who I thought was the love of my life, and a college fund that was finally looking healthy enough to get me out of this town. I walked into the dining room, placing the ice on the sideboard. That's when I saw Anne. She was sitting at the kids' end of the massive table, but she wasn't eating. She was vibrating. That's the only way I can describe it. Her hands were gripping the tablecloth so hard her knuckles were white. She looked pale, clammy. "Anne," I whispered, leaning in. "You okay?" She flinched like I had burned her. She looked up at me, and her eyes were wide, filled with a terror I didn't understand. "I have to," she stammered. Her voice was too loud in the sudden lull of conversation. My father, Robert, stood at the head of the table, holding a wine glass. "And sweetheart, what is it? You want to make a toast?" The room went silent. 30 pairs of eyes turned to the 16-year-old girl trembling in her chair, and stood up. She looked at Mom. She looked at Dad. Then she looked at me. And in that split second, I saw something shift in her face. It wasn't fear anymore. It was calculation. It was survival. "I need to tell you all something," she said, her voice cracking perfectly. "Go ahead, honey," Mom cooed. "We're all family here. I'm pregnant," and whispered. The silence that followed was heavy, instantaneous, and suffocating. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. My father's smile froze. My mother's hand went to her pearls, a cliché unfolding in real time. "Pregnant," Dad repeated, his voice dropping an octave. "Who? And who did this?" And began to cry. Not just cry. She sobbed, her shoulders heaving, her face burying itself in her hands. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. "He forced me," she wailed. "I said no. I said we shouldn't. But he forced me." The room erupted in gasps. My uncle stood up. "Who, Anne? Give us a name." She lifted a shaking finger. She didn't point at the door. She didn't point at the invisible boyfriend nobody knew about. She pointed at me. "Jackson," she choked out. "It was Jackson. My name isn't Jackson. It's Zachary." But in that moment, she called me by my middle name, the name only family used when they were serious. "Zachary." I stood there, holding a napkin, my brain completely short-circuiting. It was like she was speaking a foreign language. "What? And what are you talking about? That's sick." I looked at my dad, expecting him to laugh, expecting him to say, "Don't be ridiculous," and, "Zach is your brother." But he wasn't laughing. His face had turned a shade of purple I'd never seen before. The veins in his neck were bulging. He looked at me and I didn't see recognition. I saw pure, unadulterated hatred. Dad, she's lying, I said, my voice rising. I never touched her. I swear to God, I never. I didn't finish the sentence. My father crossed the room in 2 strides. He didn't ask a question. He didn't ask for my side of the story. He swung. His fist connected with my jaw with a sickening crunch. I saw white flashes as my head snapped back. I crashed into the sideboard, sending the ice bucket and crystal glasses shattering to the floor. I tasted copper, blood, hot and metallic, filling my mouth. You animal! Dad roared, standing over me, his chest heaving. You sick, twisted animal. Robert, stop! My aunt screamed, but she wasn't rushing to help me. She was rushing to cover Anne's eyes. I scrambled backward on the hardwood floor, spitting blood. Dad, stop. I didn't do it. Listen to me. Don't you call me that, he spat. You don't have a father. Not anymore. I looked at my mother. She was holding and rocking her back and forth, and was buried in her chest, wailing. I locked eyes with my mom. Mom, please. You know me. I wouldn't. Mom looked at me. Her eyes were cold, dead things. Get him out of my sight, she hissed. Call the police. Get that monster out of my house. My brother Jake stepped forward. He looked at me on the floor, bleeding, surrounded by broken glass. He didn't offer a hand. He spit. A glob of saliva landed on my shoe. You don't deserve to breathe the same air as us, Jake said. Minutes later, the police were there. I was hauled out of the house in handcuffs, paraded past the neighbors who had gathered on their lawns. I saw the judgment in their eyes. In 10 minutes, I had gone from the golden boy with a college fund and a bright future to a social pariah. They took me to the station. They put me in a cold interrogation room with a mirror I knew was two-way. I sat there for hours, my jaw throbbing, my shirt stained with my own blood. The detective who came in wasn't aggressive. He looked tired. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and disgust. She's 16, son, he said. Statutory. Incest. You know how much time you're looking at. I didn't do it, I said. I was crying now, the shock wearing off, replaced by a terrifying reality. Test the baby. Do a DNA test. Check the dates. I was at soccer camp 3 months ago. Just, please, investigate. She gave a statement, the cop said. She was very detailed. She's lying, I whispered. She's scared of someone else, and she's using me. They held me overnight. But here's the thing about accusations without physical proof. They couldn't hold me forever without a charge, and the timeline and gave was shaky. The forensic nurse found no signs of recent trauma on her. It was her word against mine. By morning, they let me go. Pending further investigation, they said. I walked out of the station into the blinding morning sun. My lip was swollen. My shirt was stiff with dried blood. I had no phone. They had kept it for evidence. I had no money in my pocket. I thought the worst was over. I thought, okay, I just need to go home and explain. Once everyone calms down, we'll figure this out. I was a stupid, naive kid. I didn't know that my life as a miller was already over. I walked the 5 miles back to my house. Every car that passed me felt like an accusation. I kept my head down, praying nobody would recognize me. When I finally turned onto my street, I stopped dead. My stuff was on the lawn. It wasn't packed in boxes. It wasn't stacked neatly. It was strewn across the wet grass like garbage. My clothes, my trophies, my textbooks, my bedding. My laptop was smashed, the screen shattered, lying next to the sprinkler head. The front door opened. My father stepped out. He wasn't wearing his suit anymore. He was in jeans and a flannel shirt, holding a baseball bat. He stood on the porch, looking down at me like I was a stray dog that had wandered onto his property. I told you, he said. His voice wasn't yelling anymore. It was eerily calm. You aren't welcome here. Dad, I just want to get my keys, I said, my voice trembling. And my wallet. Please. You don't have keys, he said. And as for your wallet, consider the cash inside a severance package. Severance. I choked out. Dad, where am I supposed to go? Hell for all I care, he said. I spoke to the lawyer this morning, Zachary. You are out of the will. The inheritance? Gone. The college fund? Frozen. You are not a Miller. I am going to erase you from every document that ties you to this family. Mom! I yelled past him. Mom! I saw the curtain in the living room window twitch. I saw her face for a second, pale, tear-stained. Then the curtain fell back. She turned away. She chose her lie over her son. Get your trash and get off my property, Dad said, gripping the bat. If you're not gone in 5 minutes, I'm calling the cops and telling them you're trespassing and threatening us. I scrambled to gather what I could. I found my backpack. I shoved some clothes in it. I found my wallet lying in the mud. I opened it. $200. That was it. That was my net worth. I ran to my car. An old sedan I had bought with my own money from summer jobs. Thank God the keys were in the ignition. Dad must have thrown them there. I started the engine, the sound of it sputtering to life, the only familiar thing in a world that had turned upside down. I backed out of the driveway, looking at the house one last time. My father stood on the porch, watching me leave, like a guard dog protecting the castle from a virus. I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove until the house disappeared, until the neighborhood disappeared. I pulled into a gas station parking lot 2 towns over. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't grip the steering wheel. I needed to hear a friendly voice. I needed Emma. I went to the payphone. My cell was still with the cops, and dialed her number. I knew it by heart. It rang twice. Then someone picked up. Hello. It was Emma. Her voice sounded thick, like she had been crying. Emma. I breathed. It's me. It's Zach. Zach. She gasped. Oh my God. Where are you? I don't know, I said. I'm at a gas station. Emma, you have to believe me. And is lying. I never touched her. I know, she whispered. My heart stopped. You know. I know you, Zach, she said, sobbing now. You're the guy who cries during movies. You're the guy who saves spiders. I know you didn't do it. Thank God, I said, leaning my forehead against the cold metal of the payphone box. Okay, look, I need help. Can I come over? Just for a night. Silence. Emma, my parents, she stammered. They know about the arrest. The whole town knows, Zach. It's all over Facebook. People are saying you're a predator. But you know I'm not. My dad said if I talk to you, he's cutting me off, she cried. He said he'll pull my tuition. He said he'll call the police if you come near the house. I felt a cold pit open in my stomach. So, what are you saying? I can't lose my family, Zach, she wept. I can't. I'm sorry. Please don't call again. Click. The dial tone hummed in my ear. A flat, monotonous sound that signaled the end of my life. My family disowned me. My girlfriend left me. My name was Mud. I got back in my car. I screamed. I screamed until my throat bled, pounding the steering wheel until my knuckles bruised. Then I cried. I cried for the boy who woke up that morning thinking about college applications. That boy was dead. I started driving again. I didn't have a map. I just drove west. I drove until the sun went down. I drove until the gas light blinked red. For the next week, I lived in that car. I learned very quickly what it means to be invisible. I parked in Walmart parking lots, sleeping with one eye open, terrified of a flashlight tapping on the window. I washed my face in gas station bathrooms using harsh brown paper towels. I ate cheap. A loaf of bread and peanut butter lasted 3 days. But the $200 was draining fast. Gas was expensive. By day 7, I was in a town called Maplewood, 3 states away. I was starving. Not the kind of hungry you feel when you skip lunch. I mean starving. My stomach was cramping. My head felt light and floaty. I smelled like sweat and old upholstery. My car sputtered and died right as I rolled into the parking lot of a rundown diner called Andy's Grill. It was fate or maybe just bad luck running out of gas. I sat there for an hour watching people go in and out. I saw them eating burgers through the window. I could practically taste the grease. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. I looked insane. My hair was matted. Stubble was patching across my jaw. My eyes were sunken. You have to do something, I told myself, or you're going to die in this car. I got out. My legs felt like jelly. I walked to the diner door. There was a sign taped to the glass, handwritten in black marker. Help wanted. Dishwasher. Cash pay. I pushed the door open. A bell jingled. The smell of frying bacon hit me like a physical blow. A man was behind the counter. He looked like he was carved out of granite. Big, bald, with a gray beard and forearms the size of ham hocks. He was wiping down the counter with a rag that looked older than me. He looked up. His eyes narrowed as he scanned me. My dirty clothes, my shaking hands, the desperation radiating off me. "We ain't a shelter, kid," he rumbled. His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. "Buy something or get out." I saw the sign," I rasped. My voice was hoarse from days of silence. "For the dishwasher." He stopped wiping. He looked at the sign, then back at me. "You ever washed a dish in your life?" "Yes, sir." I lied. "I work hard. I need a job." He looked at my shoes. They were expensive sneakers, now covered in mud. He looked at the bruise on my jaw, which was turning a sickly yellow-green. "Runaway?" he asked. It wasn't an accusation, just a fact. "I need a job," I repeated. "Please." He stared at me for a long, uncomfortable minute. Then he grunted. He reached under the counter and pulled out a basket of fries and a burger that looked like a mistake order. He slid it across the counter. "Eat," he said. "Then you wash. If you break anything, I break you." I didn't wait for a fork. I ate with my hands, shoving the food into my mouth, not caring that grease was dripping onto my chin. It was the best meal I had ever had. That was how I met Andy. And that was the day Zachary Miller truly vanished. The kitchen at Andy's Grill was a hellhole, and I loved it. It was hot, steamy, and loud. For 12 hours a day, my hands were submerged in scalding water, scrubbing grease off plates that had been dirty since the 80s. My back ached. My fingers pruned and cracked. But for those 12 hours, I didn't have to think about my father's fist. At the end of that first shift, Andy tossed me a set of keys. "Attic," he grunted, pointing to a narrow staircase behind the pantry. "There's a cot. Don't smoke. Don't bring girls. Don't steal." I walked up the creaky stairs. The attic was basically a storage closet with a window. There was a mattress on the floor and a stack of old tires in the corner. To me, it looked like the Ritz-Carlton. I locked the door, curled up on the mattress, and slept for 14 hours straight. For the next 2 weeks, that was my life. Wake up, scrub dishes, eat leftovers, sleep. Andy didn't ask questions. He paid me in cash at the end of every week. Meager wages, but enough to buy soap and toothpaste. I started to feel safe, or as safe as a fugitive can feel. Then the bubble burst. It was a Tuesday lunch rush. The diner was packed. I was hauling a bus tub of dirty plates out to the front when I froze. Sitting at the counter was a trucker. Big guy wearing a vest. He was reading a newspaper. On the back page, facing me, was a photo. It was a grainy high school yearbook photo. My photo. The headline read, "Have you seen him? Teen wanted for questioning in family assault." My blood turned to ice. My hands started shaking so bad the silverware in the tub rattled. The trucker looked up at the sound. He looked at me. He looked at the paper. Then he looked at me again. His eyes widened. "Hey," the trucker said, pointing a fry at me. "You look like..." I dropped the tub. Plates crashed to the floor. I turned and ran. I didn't know where I was going. Just away. I bolted for the back door. "Hey, kid." Andy's voice boomed over the noise of the diner. I fumbled with the latch on the back door, panic blinding me. They found me. They're going to drag me back. Prison. I'm going to prison. A massive hand grabbed the back of my shirt and slammed me against the wall. It was Andy. "Where is the fire, boy?" he growled. "Let me go." I screamed, struggling against his grip. I didn't do it. I swear. The trucker was standing in the kitchen doorway now, holding the paper. That's him, Andy. That's the kid from the paper. Says he attacked his sister. Andy looked at the paper. He looked at the headline. He looked at the photo. Then he looked at me, trembling against the wall, tears streaming down my face. I didn't touch her, Andy. I sobbed. She lied. Please, don't call them. The kitchen went deadly silent. The cook stopped flipping burgers. Andy took the newspaper from the trucker. He looked at it for a long second. Then he crumpled it up into a ball and tossed it into the trash can. Don't look like him to me, Andy said, his voice flat. The trucker blinked. What? Andy, that's clearly. I said. Andy stepped closer to the trucker, crossing his massive arms. It don't look like him. My dishwasher's name is Zach. He's been here 2 weeks. Works hard. Keeps his mouth shut. He stared the trucker down. You want to finish your burger, Earl? Or you want to play detective? The trucker looked at Andy, then at me. He shrugged. Whatever you say, Andy. Just looked like him. He went back to his seat. Andy turned to me. I was sliding down the wall, gasping for air. Get up, he said roughly. Why? I whispered. Why didn't you turn me in? Andy sighed, scratching his beard. Kid, I've been around long enough to know the look of a guilty man. You got the look of a scared rabbit. Besides, he looked toward the dining room. Everybody's got a story. Some are true, some ain't. As long as you scrub those plates clean, I don't care what your last name is. He pointed to the sink. Get back to work. And stop breaking my damn plates. That was the moment Andy became more of a father to me than Robert Miller had ever been. Over the next few months, Andy started teaching me things. He saw I was smart, that I hated being idle. When the walk-in freezer broke, he didn't call a repairman. He called me over. Look here, he said, pointing at the compressor. You see this coil? It's frozen over. Why? Bad airflow, I guessed. Smart kid, he grunted. Fix it. I started reading manuals. I started fixing the AC units, the fryer, the ice machine. I realized I had a knack for it. I liked machines. Machines didn't lie. If a machine was broken, there was a reason, and if you followed the logic, you could fix it. Humans weren't like that. One night, after closing, Andy slid a brochure across the counter to me. It was for a trade school nearby. HVAC certification. I can't, I said. I don't have a high school diploma. I don't have ID that I can use. I know a guy on the school board, Andy said, and you can get a GED. As for the ID, he reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is your salary for the last 6 months. I've been saving the extra. Use it to get a lawyer, get a name change, get whatever you need. Stop hiding, Zach. Build something. I opened the envelope. It was full of cash. I looked at him, my eyes burning. Why? Because, Andy said, looking away, my son would have been your age if he hadn't made different choices. Don't waste it. I took that money. I studied for my GED at night in the attic. I worked double shifts. I got my certification. I was rebuilding myself piece by piece. But the ghost of my past was always there, waiting. 5 years passed. I wasn't a dishwasher anymore. I was a lead technician for a local HVAC company. I had my own apartment. It was small, but it had a lock on the door and my name on the lease. Well, not my old name. I had legally changed my name to Zachary Sterling. Sterling was my grandmother's maiden name, the only person in that cursed family who had ever shown me unconditional love before she died. Zachary Smith was dead. He died the night he slept in a Honda Civic behind a gas station. I was safe. I was stable. But I was haunted. I had a ritual. Every year on my birthday I would go to an internet cafe, never my own computer, paranoia is a hard habit to break, and I would search for them. It was a form of self-harm, I know. But I needed to know. That year, I found Anne's Facebook profile. It was public. I scrolled, and my breath caught in my throat. There were photos of a party. A welcome home party for Anne. And there, in the center of the photo, was Anne holding a baby. A little girl. maybe 4 years old. The caption read, "Happy 4th birthday to my little miracle, Lily. So blessed to have such a supportive family." My parents were in the photo. Dad was smiling, a genuine smile I hadn't seen in years. Mom was holding the cake. They looked happy. They looked perfect. Wait, the math. And accused me when she was 16. The baby was 4 now. That meant she kept the baby. That meant my parents were raising the child of the assault. And they looked so guilt-free. They were playing grandparents to the child born from a lie. I felt a surge of bile in my throat. I wanted to smash the screen. How could they sleep at night? How could they celebrate birthdays and holidays while I was erased? But then I saw something else. A comment from my brother Jake. "Best niece ever. Glad we kept the circle tight." Kept the circle tight. That was their code for protected the lie. I logged off. I walked out into the rain. I stood on the sidewalk and made a vow. I will never let them hurt me again. I will become so successful, so untouchable, that their opinion of me doesn't matter. I threw myself into my work. I became a machine. I took every overtime shift. I volunteered for the crawlspace jobs nobody wanted. One summer, I was working with a guy named Derek. Derek was a new hire, young, kinda clumsy, but a good kid. We were servicing a unit in a high-end mansion. The owner was a wealthy woman who watched us like a hawk. While we were packing up, the woman came screaming out of the kitchen. "My ring!" she shrieked. "I left my diamond ring on the counter. It's gone. You stole it." She pointed a manicured finger right at Derek. Derek went pale. "Ma'am, I was in the basement the whole time." "You're a thief," she yelled. "I'm calling the police. I'm calling your boss." I saw the look in Derek's eyes. It was the same look I had in the dining room 10 years ago. Pure terror. The realization that the truth doesn't matter when power is involved. I stepped in front of Derek. "Ma'am, nobody is calling anyone yet," I said, my voice low and steady. "Excuse me?" she snapped. "Empty your pockets." "We will," I said. "But first, I'm going to check the return vent in the kitchen." "Why?" "Because you have a high-velocity system," I explained calmly. "And if you put a light ring next to a return vent when the fan kicks on." I walked into the kitchen. I unscrewed the vent cover on the wall. I reached my hand deep into the ductwork. I felt around the dust and debris. My fingers brushed against something cold and hard. I pulled it out. A diamond ring. I held it up. "Is this it?" The woman went silent. She snatched the ring back. She didn't apologize. She just muttered, "Oh, well, get out." In the truck, Derek was shaking. "Man, you saved my life. I have a record, Zach. Stupid stuff from when I was a kid. If cops came, they would have pinned it on me for sure." I gripped the steering wheel. "I know, Derek. I know." That was the turning point. I realized I couldn't just work for someone else. I needed to build my own fortress. I used my savings. I took out a loan. I started Sterling Heating and Air. I started with 1 van, then 2, then 5. I was ruthless with quality. I hired guys like Derek, guys who needed a second chance but had good hands. We showed up on time. We didn't overcharge. In a town of scammers, integrity was a unique selling proposition. By the time I was 27, I had a fleet of 10 trucks. I had a receptionist. I had a reputation. I was making a salary that dwarfed what my father ever made. I bought a house, a real house with a yard for a dog I named Buster. I had done it. I had won. But victory is lonely. I had dated a few women, but I always pushed them away. As soon as things got serious, as soon as they asked about my family, I shut down. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk another Emma. I thought I was safe. I thought the wall I built was high enough. But walls don't stop phone calls. Life has a funny way of letting you think you've outrun the storm, just before the hurricane tears the roof off. It was a Tuesday in early November. I remember the date perfectly because I had just closed the biggest contract in the history of Sterling Heating and Air. We had secured the bid for a massive new commercial complex downtown. It was the kind of deal that meant financial security wasn't just a goal anymore. It was a reality. I was sitting in my office, staring at the signed contract. The ink was still wet. I should have been popping champagne. I should have been calling friends. But I was sitting there, listening to the hum of the server in the corner, feeling that familiar, cold hollow in my chest. Success is a strange thing when you have no one to share it with. You build a castle, but if you lock the gates to keep everyone out, it's just a really expensive prison. My receptionist, Sarah, buzzed in on the intercom. Zach. Her voice sounded hesitant. Sarah knew the rules. Never interrupt me during budget hours unless the building is on fire. I pressed the button. This better be good, Sarah. It's a woman, Sarah said, dropping her voice to a whisper. She says her name is Emma. She says she has information about your family. She sounds like she's crying, Zach. The pen I was holding snapped. Just like that. A clean break of black plastic, ink bleeding onto my thumb. Emma. The name hit me like a physical blow to the solar plexus. For 10 years, I had trained myself not to say that name. I had trained myself to forget the sound of her laugh, the way she smelled like vanilla, and the way she had whispered, "I can't lose my family," before hanging up on me and leaving me to die in a parking lot. Tell her to get lost, I snarled, wiping the ink off my hand with a tissue. Tell her if she calls again. I'm blocking the number. Zach, wait, Sarah pleaded. She said the police are involved. She said, and is in handcuffs. The world stopped spinning. The background noise of the office. The phones ringing, the technicians laughing in the break room, the traffic outside. All of it vanished. There was just the buzzing of the fluorescent light above me and the pounding of my own heart in my ears. Handcuffs. I looked at the phone. It was blinking red. One line. One connection to the past I had buried under layers of concrete and cash. I picked it up. My hand wasn't shaking. It was rock steady. That terrified me more than anything. This is Sterling, I said. My voice was a stranger's voice. Low. Metallic. Zach. I closed my eyes. Hearing her voice was like touching a live wire. It was older, deeper, stripped of the teenage innocence I remembered. But it was undeniably her. You have 30 seconds, Emma, I said. Start talking. I didn't think you'd answer, she stammered, her breath hitching. I'm sorry. I know I have no right. I know you hate me. 20 seconds. It's Anne, she rushed out. She's been arrested, Zach. It's all over. The lies. Everything. She's in the county jail. I leaned back in my leather chair, staring at the ceiling. What did she do? Shoplifting? DUI? No, Emma whispered. She did it again. She accused someone else. I sat up straight, the leather creaking beneath me. A cold chill ran down my spine, sharper than any winter wind. Who? I demanded. A man named David Kenderson, Emma said. He's a developer, wealthy, older, and was working as his assistant. Last week she went to HR. She went to the police. She told them he forced himself on her in his office. She told them she was pregnant. I felt nauseous. It was the same script, the exact same performance. The tears, the accusation, the pregnancy card. It was a play she had written 10 years ago, and I was the original cast member. Let me guess, I said, bitterness coating my tongue like acid. David is ruined. His wife left him. He's sleeping in his car. No, Emma said, and this time, there was a strange note in her voice. Awe, fear, that's the thing, Zach. David isn't you. David was ready. What do you mean? He knew she was unstable, Emma explained. Apparently, she had been dropping hints, trying to blackmail him for a promotion and a raise for months. When she finally pulled the trigger and went to the cops, David didn't panic. He called his lawyer, a shark from the city. I listened, gripped by the story. I was imagining this man, this David Kenderson, standing tall where I had crumbled. He had cameras, Zach, Emma continued. Hidden cameras in his office. Audio recordings. He had proof that she came onto him, that he rejected her, and that she threatened to ruin him like she ruined her brother, if he didn't pay up. She said that. I whispered. She mentioned me? She was recorded saying it, Emma confirmed. When the police played the tape for her, she broke. She didn't just confess to framing David. She confessed to everything. The detectives pressed her. They pulled up your old file. They asked about the pattern. My throat felt tight, like a hand was squeezing it. And, she told them. Emma was crying now, audible sobs coming through the line. She told them about the night at the dinner table. She told them you never touched her. She told them the baby, Lily, isn't yours. Who? I asked. I needed a name. I needed a face to put on 10 years of nightmares. Who was the father? A guy named Vernon, Emma said. A local drug dealer she met behind the bleachers. He was 19. When she told him she was pregnant, he laughed at her. He said if she told anyone, he'd kill her. He skipped town the next day. I closed my eyes, visualizing the scene. A scared 16-year-old girl. A dangerous boyfriend. A belly full of consequences. And there I was, Zachary, the brother who helped with homework. The brother who never fought back. The safe target. I was a shield, I murmured. I wasn't a monster. I was just a human shield for her mistakes. She chose you because she knew everyone would believe her, Emma said, her voice trembling with guilt. She chose you because you were good, Zach. Because you were the golden child's protector. She weaponized your kindness against you. Silence stretched between us. The truth was out. It was floating in the air, heavy and undeniable. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like an amputation. I looked at the framed certification on my wall, the one Andy had paid for. I looked at my hands, rough from years of manual labor. Zach, Emma asked softly, are you still there? Why are you calling, Emma? I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. Why now? Why not 5 years ago? Why not the day I left? I needed you to know, she wept. And I needed to say I'm sorry. I was a coward. My parents threatened to stop paying my tuition, to cut my college fund, and I chose money over the truth. I chose comfort over you. I have to live with that every day. Yes, I said. You do. I didn't offer forgiveness. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't okay. Forgiveness is cheap when you haven't paid the price of the damage. Thank you for the information, Emma, I said. Don't call this number again. I hung up before she could say goodbye. I sat there for a long time. The sun moved across the floor of my office. The shadows lengthened. I didn't move. I felt like I had been holding my breath for 10 years. And suddenly, I had exhaled, but my lungs didn't know how to take the next breath. My computer pinged. An email notification. Then another. Then my phone started buzzing with text messages. It was starting. I opened a local news site. The headline was screaming in bold, black letters. Local woman arrested for extortion. Admits 2-decade OLD frame job. There was her mugshot. She looked older, haggard. The makeup was gone. The innocent, wide-eyed look that had fooled a town was replaced by the hard, bitter lines of a woman who had spent a decade spinning a web that finally caught her. I scrolled down to the comments. User 123. OMG. Isn't this the sister of that Miller kid who vanished? The one everyone said was a perv. Justice for all. I went to school with Zach Miller. He was a good guy. This makes me sick. His family destroyed him. Town gossip. I always thought something was off about her story. Poor guy. I laughed. A dry, humorless bark of a laugh. Suddenly, everyone was an expert. Suddenly, everyone always knew. Where were these people when I was sleeping in a Honda Civic? Where were they when I was washing dishes for scraps? They were the same people who crossed the street to avoid me. My office door opened. It was Kevin, one of my senior technicians. He looked pale. Boss, he said, holding his phone. Have you seen this? The news? It's about you. I looked at Kevin. He was a good kid. Young. Eager. Just like I used to be. I saw it, Kevin, I said calmly. Is it true? He asked. You were innocent the whole time? Yes, I said. I was. Kevin looked at me with a new expression. It wasn't just respect for his boss anymore. It was something deeper. Man, I don't know how you're standing here. If my family did that to me, I'd want to burn the world down. Fire doesn't fix anything, Kevin, I said, standing up and grabbing my keys. It just leaves you with ashes to clean up. And I'm done cleaning up other people's messes. I walked out of the office. I walked past the receptionist's desk where Sarah was staring at me with wide, teary eyes. I walked out to my truck. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel. I thought I would feel vindicated. I thought I would want to drive to my parents' house and scream in their faces. I told you so, but I didn't. I just felt tired. A bone-deep exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail. I checked it. It was from a number I didn't recognize. Played it. Mr. Sterling? This is David Kenderson. I believe we have a mutual enemy. My lawyer tells me your testimony could be the final nail in the coffin. I'm going for blood, Zach. I'm going for custody arrangements regarding her child. I'm suing for every penny of inheritance she might claim. I want to make sure she never destroys a man again. Call me. I stared at the phone. This was it. The crossroads. I could walk away. I could let the police handle it. I could stay in my safe, quiet life as Zachary Sterling. Or I could step back into the fire. Not as a victim this time, but as a witness. As the hammer of justice. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The scared 17-year-old boy was gone. The man staring back had gray hairs at his temples and scars on his hands. I started the truck. I wasn't going to hide anymore. This is the moment that changed everything. The moment the weight of 10 years was lifted off my shoulders, not by a hug or an apology, but by the cold, hard truth revealed in a police interrogation room. I finally reclaimed my name, but the battle was far from over. If you have been listening this far, you are incredible. Please, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and comment number 1 below. Let me know you're riding shotgun with me on this journey. It not only helps more people find this story, but it tells me that my pain wasn't for nothing, that it means something to you. Your support is the fuel that keeps me going as I prepare to face the people who erased me. When the truth comes out, it doesn't just set you free. It burns everything around you to the ground. In the weeks following Anne's arrest and confession, the house of Miller crumbled. Small towns are vicious. The same people who shun me now turned their sights on my parents. Rumors flew. How could they not know? What kind of mother chooses an adopted daughter over her own son? I heard Robert lost his job. It was true. My father, the man who prided himself on his reputation, was let go. His company didn't want the bad PR of employing a man who facilitated the framing of his own child. The divorce rumors started swirling around my brother Jake, whose wife apparently didn't like being married to a coward. I watched it all from a distance. I felt like a god watching a city burn. Then they showed up. It started with Mom. I was at my warehouse, supervising the loading of a new shipment of AC units. The security guard at the gate radioed me. Mr. Sterling? There's an older lady here. Says she's your mother. I tightened my grip on the clipboard. Let her in, but escort her. I waited in the loading bay. A few minutes later, a sedan pulled up. My mother stepped out. She looked small. The imperious woman who ruled the dinner table was gone. She was hunched. Her hair was graying. She was holding a Tupperware container. She walked up to me, her eyes filling with tears. Zachary, she breathed. I didn't move. I stood there in my work boots and Sterling HVAC polo shirt, arms crossed. It's Zachary Sterling now. She flinched. Oh, yes, I heard. She lifted the container. I made your favorite, chicken casserole. I thought, maybe you were hungry. I looked at the casserole. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. 10 years of hell and she brings a casserole. I'm not hungry, I said. What do you want? I want to apologize, she wept. We didn't know, Zach. She lied to us too. She was so convincing. We were victims too. Victims? I stepped closer. You watched Dad beat me. You watched me bleed on the floor. You didn't ask me a single question. You threw my clothes in the mud. Your father was so angry, she sobbed. I was scared. You weren't scared, I said coldly. You were relieved. You preferred the lie because it was cleaner. It was easier to sacrifice me than to admit your perfect daughter was flawed. Please, she reached for my hand. We miss you. The house is so empty. Dad is... He's not doing well. We want you to come home. I am home, I said, gesturing to my warehouse. This is my home. Zach, please. Take your casserole, I said, and leave. If you come back, I'll file for a restraining order. She stood there, stunned. She wasn't used to hearing no. She set the casserole on a shipping crate and walked away, sobbing into her hands. I threw the casserole in the dumpster. 2 days later, it was Dad. He didn't come with food. He came with attitude. He barged into the reception area, bypassing Sarah. I heard the commotion and opened my office door. There he was, Robert Miller. He looked older, thinner, but the arrogance was still there. Sir, you can't be back here. Sarah was yelling. It's okay, Sarah, I said. Let him in. Dad walked into my office. He looked around, taking in the mahogany desk, the awards on the wall, the view of the lot full of trucks. You've done well, he said. No hello. No sorry. Just an appraisal. State your business, I said, not inviting him to sit. Don't speak to me like that, he snapped, the old reflex kicking in. Then he caught himself. He sighed. Look, son, things are complicated. This lawsuit from Kenderson is going to bankrupt us. The legal fees, the damages. He's talking about taking the house. Sounds like a problem, I said. We need you to talk to him, Dad said. He's your ally, right? Tell him to back off. Tell him we've suffered enough. We lost our daughter to prison. For Christ's sake. You didn't lose her, I said. You enabled her. We made a mistake. Dad slammed his hand on my desk. We are human, but we are family. Blood is thicker than water, Zachary. I'm not a Miller, I reminded him. You said it yourself. You erased me. I was angry, and now I'm indifferent, I said. I pressed the intercom button. Security, I have a trespasser in the executive office. Please remove him. Dad's jaw dropped. You're calling security? On your father. You're not my father, I said, looking him dead in the eye. My father was a man named Andy who ran a diner and taught me how to be a man. You're just a guy who owes me a childhood. 2 burly guards appeared at the door. Sir, you need to leave, one said. Dad looked at me, his face turning that familiar shade of purple. But he didn't swing this time. He knew he had no power here. You're a cold bastard, he spat as they let him out. I learned from the best, I replied. A week later, a box arrived. No return address. I opened it. It was full of letters. Dozens of them. Unopened. They were the letters I had sent in the first month after I left. The letters where I begged them to believe me. The letters where I told them I was hungry and cold. They had kept them. They had never opened them. And now they were sending them back? Or maybe Mom sent them to show she had kept them. I didn't care. I took the box to the warehouse floor. I threw it into the incinerator we used for trash. I watched the flames curl around the envelopes. I watched my desperate, teenage words turn to ash. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I had burned the bridge completely. But the devil always has one last card to play. And her name was Anne. I thought I was done. I thought throwing my parents out of my office and burning their letters was the period at the end of the sentence. But the past is a stubborn thing. It doesn't just disappear because you want it to. It lingers in the cracks of the pavement, waiting to trip you up one last time. 3 months after Anne's arrest, I received a letter. It wasn't from a lawyer. It wasn't from my parents. It was a plain white envelope with a stamp that was slightly crooked. The return address was stamped in red ink. Maple Ridge Correctional Facility. I stood by my mailbox, the wind biting at my face, holding that envelope like it was a bomb. Inside was a single sheet of lined yellow paper. The handwriting was shaky, barely recognizable as the neat, bubbly script and used to use to sign birthday cards. Zachary, I don't expect you to come. I don't deserve it. But the lawyers say I'm going away for a long time. There are things you don't know. Things about the family. Things about Lily. Please, 1 hour. That's all I ask. And I read it twice. Then I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. I went inside, fed my dog Buster, and turned on the TV. But I couldn't focus. The name Lily kept flashing in my mind. The little girl I had seen in the Facebook photos. The innocent child living in a house built on lies. Things you don't know. Curiosity is a curse. But so is silence. If I didn't go, I would wonder for the rest of my life what she had to say. A week later, I took a day off. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not Sarah. Not my guys. I drove 2 hours north, deep into the rural wasteland where they keep the people society wants to forget. The prison was gray concrete and razor wire, sitting in the middle of a dead cornfield. The air smelled of diesel fumes and desperation. I went through security. I surrendered my phone, my keys, my wallet. I felt naked without them. The guards patted me down with indifferent hands. Visitor for inmate 8940, the guard grunted. Booth 4. I walked into the visitation room. It was cold. A long row of plexiglass windows separated the free from the caged. I sat down at booth 4. The plastic chair was hard and bolted to the floor. A few minutes later, a door buzzed on the other side, and walked in. I barely recognized her. The golden hair was dull and pulled back in a severe bun. Her face, once plump with youth and arrogance, was gaunt. Her skin was sallow. She looked 20 years older than 26. She sat down. She didn't look at me. She picked up the receiver. I picked up mine. You came, she said. Her voice was tinny through the phone, stripped of its old musical quality. I had a free afternoon, I lied. My voice was steady, cold. You said you had information. Talk. She looked up then. Her eyes were red-rimmed. You look good, Zach. You look strong. I look like a man who survived, I said. Don't try to butter me up and we aren't siblings. We aren't friends. You are the person who stole 10 years of my life. Why am I here? She flinched. She looked down at her hands, twisting a piece of loose thread on her orange jumpsuit. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but being in here, stripping everything away, I see what I did. Why? I asked, the question that had burned a hole in my gut for a decade. Why me? I helped you with your homework. I defended you from bullies. I was the only one who truly treated you like blood. Why did you pick me to destroy? She let out a shuddering breath. Because you were safe. I stared at her. Safe. Vernon, the real father, he was scary, Zach. He had a gun. He told me if I named him, he'd hurt me. He'd hurt the baby. She looked at me, pleading for understanding. But you were Zach. You were the gentle one. You were the good son. I thought you would just deny it and Mom and Dad would handle it quietly. I thought maybe they'd send me away for a while or get me an abortion. I didn't think. You didn't think they would throw me out like garbage? I finished for her. I panicked, she cried, tears tracking down her hollow cheeks. And then, once the lie was out, everyone believed it so fast. Dad was so angry. Mom was so dramatic. I couldn't take it back. If I admitted I lied, they would have hated me too. I was scared of being alone. So you made sure I was the one who was alone, I said. You traded my life for your comfort. That's not panic. And that's evil. She nodded, sobbing silently. I know. I deserve this. I deserve to be in here. Is that all? I asked, preparing to hang up. You wanted to give me a history lesson on your cowardice? No, she said quickly, pressing her hand against the glass. It's about Lily. I froze. What about her? She's 10 now, and said, she's smart. She asks questions about her father. My stomach tightened. And Mom and Dad, and hesitated, looking terrified. They never told her the truth. Even now. Even after the arrest. What do you mean? They told her you are her father. And whispered. They told her you were a bad man who hurt me and ran away. They showed her your picture, Zach. The one from high school. She hates you. She thinks you abandoned her. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands clenched into fists so tight my fingernails dug into my palms. They did what? I hissed. They didn't want to admit they were wrong. And said. It was easier to keep the lie going than to explain to a child that her mother is a liar and her grandparents are enablers. They poisoned her against you, Zach. To protect themselves. I stood up. The chair screeched against the floor. This was it. The final cruelty. They hadn't just erased me. They had turned me into a boogeyman for an innocent child. They had weaponized a little girl's mind to cover their own shame. You tell them, I said, my voice shaking with rage. You tell them that if they don't tell that girl the truth, the real truth, I will sue for defamation so hard they won't have a house to sleep in. I will put their names on every billboard in this county. I can't, and wailed. I'm in here. They won't listen to me anymore. Then that's your problem, I said. You built this house of cards. Watch it fall. I looked at her one last time. I didn't see a sister. I didn't see a victim. I saw a stranger who had consumed everything in her path to save herself. I hope it was worth it, I said. I hope the 10 years of comfort were worth dying in a cage. Zach, please, she screamed as I turned away. Don't leave me. You're the only one who knows the truth. Please. I didn't look back. I walked out of the visitation room. I walked through the heavy steel doors. I walked out into the gray afternoon. I got into my truck and just sat there. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt a cold, hard resolve settling in my chest like concrete setting. They had used a child. That was the line. There was no going back from that. There was no clearing the air. There was only war. I pulled out my phone. I dialed a number I had saved but never used. David, I said when he answered. It's Zach. I'm ready. Let's burn them down. The civil trial wasn't a battle. It was an execution. David Kenderson didn't just have a lawyer. He had a team of sharks in Italian suits who smelled blood in the water. I wasn't the plaintiff, but I was the star witness. I sat on the stand and told my story. For the first time in history, people were legally obligated to listen to me. I looked at the jury, 12 strangers, and I told them about the night at the dinner table. I told them about the homeless nights. I told them about Andy. My parents were in the gallery. They looked like ghosts. Dad had lost so much weight his suit hung off him. Mom just stared at the floor, refusing to meet my eyes. When the verdict came down, it was swift, and was found liable for damages that would take her 3 lifetimes to pay off. But David didn't stop there. His team uncovered the financial fraud my parents had committed to cover Ann's legal bills, dipping into accounts they shouldn't have, hiding assets. The inheritance they had threatened to cut me off from, it was gone. The house? Liens were placed on it. They were stripped bare. But the real justice came quietly, in the form of a Child Protective Services investigation that David's lawyer triggered regarding Lily. It turned out that raising a child in a home built on pathological lies isn't considered a safe environment. Custody was awarded to a distant relative of Vernon's who was actually decent. Lily was going to be told the truth. Not by me, but by professionals who would undo the brainwashing. I walked out of the courthouse that final day, and the sun was shining. Felt different. The air tasted cleaner. David shook my hand on the steps. We did it, Zach. You did it, I said. I just told the truth. The truth is a weapon, he said. You wielded it well. Life moved on. And this time it moved forward. I met Rachel about 6 months later. She was a graphic designer I hired to rebrand the company fleet. I walked into the conference room, and she was laying out logo samples. She looked up, tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear, and smiled. You must be the man who built the empire, she said. I'm just the guy who fixes the AC, I replied. We went to dinner that night. I didn't mean to tell her everything, but Rachel had a way of listening. A stillness that made you want to fill the silence. I told her about the prison. I told her about the trial. I told her about Andy. She didn't look at me with pity. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was warm. "You're not broken, Zach," she said firmly. "You're just forged. Like steel. It makes you stronger." 2 years passed. We moved in together. We got engaged. Andy, now retired and grumbling about his arthritis, moved into the guest cottage on our property so I could keep an eye on him. I had everything. A thriving business. A woman who loved me. A father figure who respected me. A dog that adored me. Then came the final test. It was a Tuesday night, almost midnight. Rachel was asleep beside me. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I rolled over, squinting at the screen. Unknown number. I knew. Somehow I knew. I slipped out of bed and went to the balcony. The night air was cool. I accepted the call, but I didn't speak. "Zachary." It was Dad. His voice was a wreck. Raspy, weak, wet. "It's Robert," he said. He couldn't even call himself Dad anymore. I don't have much time, son. The doctors, it's stage 4. Pancreatic. It moved fast. I listened to the sound of his breathing. It sounded like a rattle in a broken vent. "I'm scared, Zach," he whispered. The arrogance was gone. The rage was gone. All that was left was a dying old man terrified of the dark. "I don't want to die knowing you hate me. I don't want to leave this world with this distance. Please, can you come? Just for 5 minutes? I need to hear you say you forgive me. I need it for my soul." I looked out at the backyard. I saw the moon reflecting off the pool I had built. I saw the light on in the guest cottage where Andy was sleeping safe and sound. I thought about the boy spitting blood on the dining room floor. I thought about the cold nights in the Honda Civic. I thought about Lily, lied to for 10 years. Forgiveness. It's what movies tell you to do. They say it's for you, not them. They say you have to forgive to heal. But they are wrong. Sometimes, forgiveness is just permission for them to feel better about destroying you. He wanted absolution. He wanted me to wash his hands clean so he could face Judgment Day with a lighter conscience. He wanted to use me one last time as a priest, as a sanitizer. "Zachary," he wheezed. "Are you there? Please, son." "Robert," I said. My voice was calm, peaceful. "My father is sleeping in the guest cottage. You have the wrong number." "No, wait. Don't." I ended the call. Then I did something else. I blocked the number. I blocked Mom's number. I stood there for a moment waiting for the guilt, waiting for the regret. But it never came. Instead, I felt light, weightless. I walked back into the bedroom. Rachel stirred, opening one eye. "Who was that?" she murmured sleepily. "Wrong number," I whispered. I climbed back into bed and pulled her close. "Just a spam caller." She hummed, snuggling into my chest. "Love you. Love you too." The next week, I read the obituary in the paper. Robert Miller, 62. The funeral was private. I didn't go. I didn't send flowers. Instead, I took the day off. I took Andy and Rachel to a baseball game. We ate hot dogs. We screamed at the umpire. We laughed until our sides hurt. I looked at them. Andy wiping mustard off his beard. Rachel cheering for a home run. And I realized the truth. Biology is an accident. Family is a choice. They tried to erase me. They tried to turn me into a ghost. But they failed. I am not a ghost. I am a man who built his own world from the ashes of theirs. And in this world, there are no lies. There is only the truth we make for ourselves. This is where my story ends. But for me, it's just the beginning of a life that finally belongs to me. I walked through fire to get here, and I know many of you are walking through your own fires right now. Family trauma is a heavy burden, but you don't have to carry it forever. You have the power to put it down. You have the power to say no. If the story touched you, if you felt that anger and that ultimate peace, please do one last thing for me. Smash that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's build a community of survivors who know that blood isn't always thicker than water. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing me. I'm Zachary Sterling, and I'm signing off.